Playwright Anton Chekhov famously said, "Never place a loaded rifle on stage if it isn't going to go off." In other words, every detail must be relevant, and every setup should have a payoff. Thus, the narrative principle of Chekhov's gun was born. But it isn't always a gun. Chekhov's Whatever is a podcast where myself and guests watch a movie and try to predict what role Chekhov's gun will play. Welcome to Chekhov's Whatever. Hello and welcome to Chekhov's Whatever, the podcast that makes a game of movies and storytelling. I'm your host, Evan Mezeske. Here with me today to discuss the 2024 action thriller Carry On is Mr. Chekhov's Whatever himself, my husband, Evan Mezeske. Welcome to the podcast, Evan.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for being my holiday time pinch hitter on the podcast.
Anytime.
What would you like to tell the listeners about yourself?
Well, I'm an amateur cat trainer.
That's true. We got a cat wheel for our two cats, and we've been training them.
Yep, that's my main job right now.
Next is teaching them to jump through flaming hoops.
I hope it doesn't catch on fire.
So Evan has agreed to come on the podcast with me today to talk about the movie Carry On. This is an action thriller that was straight to Netflix. It was just released earlier this year in 2024. It's about a young TSA agent who fights to outsmart a mysterious traveler who blackmails him into letting a dangerous package slip onto a Christmas Eve flight. This movie stars Taron Egerton, Jason Bateman, and Sophia Carson. Currently, it has an 86% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 56% audience score. And crazy enough, it's a certified fresh pick by critics. Maybe we can get into this later. Don't want to necessarily show our hand already, but an 86% critic score is way too high.
Well, I think we know that there's a bug in the software code for Rotten Tomatoes.
Maybe all of the critics are under the influence of big Netflix, perhaps?
I think they're just AI, actually. Rotten Tomatoes has replaced all the critics with artificial intelligence.
And screenwriters, too, apparently. Did you have any expectations for this movie before we watched it?
I expected that it might be a good movie.
That was my expectation and hope as well. So one reason why I wanted in particular to have Evan watch this movie with me is because a lot of people were comparing it to Die Hard. And I think the comparison starts and ends with the fact that there are terrorists and it happens to take place on Christmas. Any other similarity to Die Hard is not present.
Well, I will mention I wasn't expecting to be watching a Christmas movie. I feel like I was tricked into watching a Christmas movie against my will.
Okay, well, Carry On is as much a Christmas movie as Die Hard is, which is to say not at all.
You mean entirely?
No.
I will say, first of all, Die Hard is a great movie.
It is.
That's why Megan thought that I might like this movie.
Yes.
In the comparison. Die Hard does have a Christmas message, family coming together, etc. This movie doesn't have that. It just opened with a Christmas song to be annoying.
Christmas is entirely incidental to the movie, as it is in Die Hard. What makes a Christmas movie is that the magic of the season is essential to the plot. And often this is someone learns to embrace the magic of the season when they were initially resistant to it.
I think Christmas was actually quite important to this movie, Carry On. You see, for their sales numbers, some executives at Netflix sat around and decided that because the movie was going to be released near Christmas, they should glue on 2 minutes of random Christmas stuff to the beginning of the film.
Okay, well, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I suppose we can discuss the merits of Christmas versus non-Christmas movies later, but I'm right. That's all I'm going to say.
That's normal.
But before we get into the movie, here's a quick overview of how Chekhov's Whatever works. This is a podcast where myself and the lovely guest watch and review a movie that's new to us. We also play a game where we try to guess what Chekhov's gun will be and how it will play out later in the movie. Chekhov's gun is a plot element that must have a setup and a payoff. That setup usually happens in Act 1, and the payoff typically comes later in Act 3. A Chekhov's gun is also typically a concrete item, action, or person, rather than something symbolic or thematic. And finally, a Chekhov's gun should move the plot forward in a meaningful way. We get +2 points if we correctly identify a Chekhov's gun. We also get an additional point for correctly guessing how that Chekhov's gun will pay off. And last, we lose 1 point if we incorrectly identify a Chekhov's gun and its role. Whoever has the most points at the end of the movie wins. All right, let's get into it. Carry On starts with an opening shot of a plane landing in LA. We get an overhead view of Los Angeles decked out for Christmas, and the song Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
The executives were really happy with that part.
Yes, they were quite proud of that one, I'm sure. We next see a nursery selling Christmas trees, and a mysterious man arrives known only as the Traveler. He speaks with two Russians who are trying to negotiate a higher price for the, quote, Novichok that they are selling him. We don't know what this Novichok is at this point, but that is what the Traveler is buying. He kills the Russians and torches the greenhouse. When he leaves the nursery, he takes a red ribbon with him and a black carry-on suitcase. Cut to the title card.
Yeah, and I thought that was sort of where we were introduced to the level of professionalism of the main antagonist. I thought that torching the entire greenhouse before driving off was a pretty subtle way to get rid of the evidence without drawing any attention to himself. And so I thought, this guy knows what he's doing.
Completely, especially when he apparently has a nerve agent that can replicate heart attack and would probably fly under the radar. So he could have killed both of these guys with that agent, but instead he just killed one and shot the other one. And then, like you said, burned down the entire nursery. So
yeah, what could possibly be the point of killing one of those guys with a weird heart attack agent and then shooting the other?
Well, the answer is that this movie often does stuff solely to demonstrate things to the audience that, in fact, no one would actually do.
Interesting.
And this is where my first Chekhov's gun comes in. Chekhov's red ribbon. I think that the ribbon will come back later as sort of like a calling card. This will be the tip off to the good guys that the mysterious Traveler is indeed the bad guy. Like maybe there will be a matching red ribbon poking out of his pocket or something like that.
I thought that maybe the red ribbon would be a Chekhov something, but then I second guessed myself and decided that it wasn't.
Well, I guess you shouldn't have second guessed yourself.
If it does turn out to have some function in the plot, can I have a quarter of a point?
No. Well, maybe, because there was another thing I was thinking about calling out, but didn't. So if you can get a quarter point for that, I can get a quarter point for my thing later.
Yeah.
All right, it's a deal. In the next scene, it is Christmas Eve. We get a cozy Christmas scene of a couple at home snuggling in bed. We see their Christmas tree and the lights and a bunch of open presents. One of the open presents under the tree is a positive pregnancy test that is just left on the floor because, sure, why not? We meet our main characters, Ethan Kopech, played by Taron Egerton, and his girlfriend, Nora, played by Sophia Carson. They are cuddling and looking forward to being new parents, but you can tell that Ethan is a little thoughtful / concerned about the idea of being a father.
He's panicking.
Yeah.
On the inside.
He's got the furrowed brow. And we know, of course, that she's going to be threatened in some way because this is the easiest way to establish stakes in a thriller movie is to have a pregnant girlfriend or wife.
You got to make sure that the male protagonist has something to go back to.
Absolutely. Ethan and Nora commute to LAX together. They both work there. She is a manager of operations with the fake Northwind Airlines, and he is a TSA agent. On their bus to the airport, Nora encourages Ethan to reapply for a police academy. Apparently, this has always been his dream, and he applied once but was denied entry.
This was one of my Chekhov's whatevers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I called it Chekhov's Police Academy. I do want to emphasize that at this point in the film, I hadn't noticed that he was a TSA agent, and I hadn't seen any previews for this movie or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I was under the impression that both of the two main characters were like flight attendants or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe they worked on the same airplane or something. And so I thought that, the police academy little backstory might be introducing the fact that this guy has some sort of interest in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not just a flight attendant making drinks for people.
I
don't know. Maybe they mentioned that he was a TSA agent before in the movie. I don't know. I didn't notice it.
To be fair, they didn't because he is wearing a coat over his TSA uniform at this point. The only reason why I knew he's a TSA agent, why I said he was just now, is because I had read the summary of the movie, whereas I made Evan go into the movie completely blind. So I had more information to go from.
That is my preferred way to watch movies.
That's true.
So I appreciate it. I will say I did see the characteristic TSA blue collar poking up out of his shirt, but I didn't figure out what that meant.
What if you were like, Chekhov's TSA agent? He's a secret TSA agent.
Yeah, you mean he's like Superman? Like he rips off his sweater and there's a TSA uniform underneath and everybody goes, oh my God, yes, the TSA is here. We're safe.
We're saved. Exactly.
Nothing to me, nothing says safety like seeing a TSA agent.
Not security theater at all.
Not at all.
This scene was also funny to me because I think it's a good example of bad, clunky exposition, because they're talking to each other as though they've never known each other before. She's saying things like, remember, you only applied to the police academy once. And remember how you moved to LA to follow me when I got the job? And also, that was 3 years ago.
I feel like this is how we speak around the house.
Yeah, totally. I mean, don't you remember, that Halloween party 20 years ago?
Yeah, that makes sense. This is what it's like to be married to Meg. We just talk in exposition all the time.
A lot of people call this clunky exposition trope, hey, little sister, or hey, bro, because a lot of times in a movie, someone will be like, hey, little sis. And it's just the instant way to establish that they are siblings, because I don't know anyone who actually talks like that.
I feel like we talk like that all the time, wife.
That's true, husband. So the soon-to-be, I assume, husband and wife, Ethan and Nora, they are just boyfriend and girlfriend, but they go to the airport. They have a cutesy little thing about how they're going to go to Tahiti someday. So usually when there's something like that in the beginning of a movie, there's going to be a callback later.
100% chance they're going to Tahiti.
Yes, that is obviously how the movie is going to end.
Unless it's a David Cronenberg film.
Oh, yeah, those are a little harder to predict.
Yeah, I mean, there might not be a happy ending.
Yeah, maybe not. As Ethan is leaving Nora, the mysterious traveler bumps into him and he makes Ethan spill coffee all over himself. Ethan shows up late for his morning TSA briefing led by Sarkowski, as played by Dean Norris, aka Hank from Breaking Bad. This guy always plays a cop in one form or another.
Just going back to the coffee spill, I just want to point out again, in terms of introducing us to the antagonist and making sure that we understand that he is a serious professional. I think it's, it was an important setup to show us that he, spills coffee on people in a strategic manner, even if he doesn't know that they're integral to the plot.
That he makes himself noticeable.
Exactly.
Instead of just lying low. He makes a point to shoulder into other people at the airport.
That's the sign of a true professional.
Complete professional.
The degree of confidence that you can go intentionally spill coffee on a TSA agent just because.
Yeah. At the TSA briefing, all the agents are told to look out for fraudulent boarding passes and to use their new blacklight counterfeit pens to check the passes. This is demonstrated by Officer Lionel Williams. He will come back later. This is my next Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's counterfeit pen. I just thought they were very blatant about pointing out this new pen and how to use it. And I predicted that Ethan would use his nifty new blacklight pen to find explosive residue. Like, I think there's going to be a scene later where he's like searching through luggage and he uses the pen and it lights up, and that leads him to the suitcase with the bomb in it.
So I just want to mention that I'm actually very bad at watching movies, and I miss a lot of details and get confused often. And later on, a Tide pen comes into play.
Yes.
And the Tide pen is used to clean some of that coffee spill off of the main guy's collar. And I sort of got confused about whether it was a Tide pen or whether it was a counterfeit pen.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And when I first saw him drawing on his collar, I thought he was taking the counterfeit pen and rubbing it all over the collar, and I couldn't figure out why he would do that.
Also, in the TSA briefing, all the TSOs are playing their little holiday tradition of contraband bingo. They have bingo cards with dildos, bullets, knives, etc. This is my next Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's contraband bingo. I think Ethan will use the bingo card to secretly communicate to his fellow agents that something is amiss. Like maybe there's a bomb square on the contraband bingo card and he like circles it and like underlines it.
I didn't realize that TSA agents played bingo for holidays. This reminds me of a time that I was an inadvertent contributor to TSA bingo.
Please share.
Well, there was a time where I was flying to Seattle for a bachelor party.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been tasked with bringing the realistic silicone scrotums for the bachelor party.
A must-have for every bachelor party.
Every bachelor party. And I took my job very seriously. I found some expensive, very, very nice, very realistic scrotums. And they were so expensive and nice that they came in a velvet bag.
Ooh.
And so I put it in my carry-on luggage and forgot about it completely. And got to the airport and I got flagged for a random screening by the TSA. Still forgot about it completely. Wasn't nervous at all, just kind of bored. I had plenty of time. I wasn't stressed out. They took me aside. They got my bag. They started going through it, looking through my underwear and everything. only when they, moved my underwear out of the way and I saw the velvet bag did I realize what was about to happen.
Even worse than underwear.
Even worse than underwear. And the TSA agent looked at me and asked, "What's in the bag?" And I think this may have been pre-coffee. I wasn't thinking clearly. And I said, "You don't want to know."
The last thing you want to say to a TSA agent.
Yeah, the thing that guarantees that they'll definitely look in the bag.
Guaranteed pat down. So
the TSA agent grabbed the bag, pulled open the drawstring, and looked straight down into it. And what he saw was the abyss. The look on his face was just that of just utter despicable despair, just hatred of why he has to do this job, why some guy brought this with him, why he got flagged for screening. And he just looked at me and shook his head, closed the bag, and we never spoke of it.
He stared into the scrotums and the scrotums stared back.
Exactly. And then he stamped his bingo card.
So surely Ethan at this point is saying, "Please God, don't let me find any plastic scrotums in anyone's luggage." And he has a little chat with his friend Jason, who gives him some fatherly advice. And he also does Ethan a huge solid because Ethan decides to ask his boss Sarkowski for a promotion, but he is shut down. Jason, being a bro, offers to swap positions with Ethan for the day, giving him the role of luggage screening and the opportunity to prove himself and to become the main character of the movie.
Because if I was his boss, the day that I would choose to give him a new role with new challenges to test him out is Christmas.
Is literally the busiest travel day of the year. Yeah. Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And to be fair, the boss said, no, that's a stupid plan. We're not doing that. But then he got talked into it.
Ethan then very prematurely texts Nora and says that he has news.
Big news. I talked to my boss once.
Big news. I got turned down for a promotion, but my buddy Jason let me take his position temporarily. Officer Williams congratulates Ethan as he takes his new post and he hands him this Tide pen that we were talking about earlier to clean up the coffee stain on his shirt.
But mostly to provoke confusion within me.
Mostly to be like, wait, I thought that was the black light pen light.
Exactly.
Yes. This was my final Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's coffee stain. So this is where I feel like maybe I should get a quarter point because I knew there was something important about pointing out the coffee and having the Tide pen. I'm like, there's some reason why this is happening because otherwise it's totally irrelevant. What I thought was going to happen was that Ethan would see a matching coffee stain on the Traveler later, and he would put together that this guy was the guy who had bumped into him earlier. Maybe this guy had been tailing him the whole day, because at this point, we don't know yet that Ethan is not the intended target of the Traveler, but I thought maybe he had been all along. So that's why he had run into him earlier, because he was tailing him and got lazy.
That's very clever. Have you ever thought about writing a screenplay yourself?
I have thought about it, but I was going to say then someone stole my idea, but that's not true. People just independently have the same ideas all the time, but I will work on a new screenplay.
You think like a writer.
I do think like a writer. But yeah, so I zeroed in on the coffee stain instead of the Tide pen, when really what I should have been zeroing in on was the Tide pen, but we will get back to that later. Let's put a pin in that. We meet the Traveler's accomplice, the guy in the van. He is called the Watcher on IMDb, so I'm just going to call him that because we don't actually get a name for him. He is in a surveillance van. He's like the eye in the sky for the Traveler. We see that he is tapped into the airport security cameras, and he's got eyes on everything going on in the airport. He also has a tied-up hostage in the back of his van.
I thought we did have a name for him.
Gus Fring's son?
I was just going to say Gus Fring Jr.
Gus Fring Jr., yes. I agree.
Or maybe Gus Fring wannabe.
Yeah.
He watched too much Breaking Bad and decided that maybe he could pull off the mustache.
He was like, this guy is my hero. I'm going to go for the Gus look.
Yeah, and he kind of pulls it off.
He kind of pulls it off, for sure.
He's less scary, though.
Maybe we just had Breaking Bad on the brain because we saw Dean Norris earlier.
Probably.
They have apparently yet another accomplice in the field because the Watcher is speaking to someone who has like a GoPro on, and this guy says that he's got eyes on the target's family. We see that he jimmies open a lock, and as he's doing this, he has a conspicuous arm tattoo, and he enters a home. We see pictures of the family in the home, and we realize that this is Jason's home, Ethan's buddy, the guy whose role he swapped places with today. The Watcher alerts the Traveler that their target, Jason, isn't at his post, but Ethan is there instead. The Watcher quickly Googles him and says, Ethan seems like a loser. He's not going anywhere. He's been at this job for 3 years with no advancement. The traveler decides in that moment to pivot and that they're going to go ahead with targeting Ethan.
He gets in as much information in 10 seconds of Googling as I would get in 3 days of stalking somebody.
Yes, everything moves at a very quick pace in this movie. Ethan is set up at his new post at the TSA scanner when a girl with blue hair flags him down. She hands out one of those trays and says, "Hey, this isn't mine." There's an earbud in the tray.
Yeah, and anytime I go through airport security, I look for objects that aren't mine to call them out as not being mine.
Yeah, the TSA really hates you. You just stand there at the scanner for ages. You see a bag go through, you're like, "That's not mine.
That's not mine.
That's not mine.
Hey, excuse me. This bag isn't mine."
Then don't take it. But yeah, Ethan takes the earbud, and right at that moment, he gets a text that tells him to put the earbud in, and he does. Why? Why would he do this?
Sheer curiosity. They've established this character as somebody who's just so curious about the world.
Yeah. When he puts in the earpiece, the traveler calls him by name and demonstrates that he's got eyes on Ethan and he knows everything about him and Nora, his pregnant girlfriend. So now that he has successfully established that he's in control, he threatens Nora and commands Ethan to let his associate with a red hat through his screening line with his bag. Don't call any attention to it. Don't flag the bag. That's all Ethan has to do.
I think it's worth noting at this point that he asks if it's a joke.
Yes. He thinks he's being pranked by a friend.
I somewhat suspect that the TSA agent training might direct him to panic at this point or flag a boss as soon as possible when something utterly bizarre happens. Have you ever had somebody secretly give you an earbud in the wild?
No, but I also have never worked a job where I would require security like that. So I guess I don't know what I would do.
I think that you would immediately flag this.
It's true.
Anything this weird just immediately goes to your supervisor. I mean, it's just, is this a joke? Who's messing with me? Who's messing with me in my security job, keeping bombs off airplanes? Ha ha ha. It's a funny joke.
It's like a Secret Service agent getting a text that's like, "I'm going to shoot the president right now." And he's like, "Bob, is that you?"
Yeah, who's doing this?
I won't tell anyone. It also makes me wonder about real TSA security. Even banks have a silent alarm, right? Wouldn't you think TSA would have a silent alarm or something like that?
I would imagine that, he's sitting at an x-ray machine. I would imagine there's a button on there that says, "Flag this to supervisor."
I would think so.
But who knows? I mean, keep in mind that actually the TSA doesn't really do anything in the sense that there aren't that many threats that they protect us against. So the fact that they're not particularly competent wouldn't really ever come into play.
And speaking of incompetent TSA agents, apparently no one around him seems to notice that the new guy is talking to himself the whole time.
Well, it's normal.
It was also in this scene that I started thinking of this movie as more like Speed than like Die Hard, because for a large part of Speed, there's the bad guy telling Keanu Reeves what to do over the cell phone. So it just had a lot of those vibes to me of the guy on the phone trying to orchestrate everything behind the scenes.
I just kept thinking it was like Scream. The way that they EQ'd the bad guy's voice over the earpiece, I thought he sounded a little bit like Scream guy on the phone.
Yeah, that's true.
Very professional, very kind of radio announcer voice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I kept getting Scream vibes.
Nice. In the next scene, we meet one of our last main characters, LAPD detective Elena Cole. She is texting and driving, which she shouldn't do, and she almost runs over a couple people.
Ha 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 ha. Texting and driving is funny.
Also, this strangely does come into play later. As she's driving on the radio, we hear something about Congresswoman Grace Turner. I didn't notice this until I was watching the movie again, but Grace Turner is important. So it's one of those funny tropes where something important to the story just happens to be on the TV or the radio. It's so coincidental. Detective Cole arrives at the scene of the nursery that has been torched. She is there to investigate the double homicide of the Russians and the arson. At the scene, she finds a cricket, which is an ATF bug that was hidden in one of the Russians' watches. She recovers it from the scene and puts her tech guy on it to try to recover the audio. The tech guy is able to get a little audio out of the bug. They find out that the victim was selling arms to Russians. And also in the audio, Detective Cole hears the word Novichok.
So really quick, what prompted this LAPD detective to pry open the back of a watch and find a bug inside. Do they just always put bugs in people's watches?
Yes, if you look in your watch right now, it has a bug in it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Back at the airport, we get a montage of TSA security theater, essentially. This scene is definitely meant to make us sympathize with the TSOs and make the passengers look stupid and annoying, but it just made me think they've got a point.
The funny thing is, as much as I complain about the TSA as an organization, I've never actually had any kind of issue with them. They enforce their policies that are really annoying, but then like the individual TSA people are just fine.
That's true.
And in this movie, they have the crowd like yelling with pitchforks, like, you suck,
Yes.
And I'm just like, does that happen? I mean, that it might, I guess.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, I'm sure it sucks to be. Did you say TSO? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, it sucks to be one of them.
Yes. Yeah, I will say, like you said, TSA is an organization I have problems with. I would never be rude to a TSA agent unless they were rude to me first. And also, I'm not like the people in this movie. I'm not taking it out on the TSOs. I promise.
Yeah. Get to the airport early enough that you're not panicking.
Exactly.
And if you are panicking, it's your problem and not their problem.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the mysterious traveler is chatting with Ethan over the earpiece, and he's loudly chewing on potato chips, or at least that's what it sounds like.
So rude.
So rude.
I should have brought some potato chips into this very room to chew on them for the podcast.
Well, apparently prop comedy is part of the podcast now, so you could have done that.
I should have.
Listen to my previous episode on Smile 2 to get what I'm talking about. This, I think, could almost be like a Chekhov's gun, like a light Chekhov's gun, Chekhov's chips.
Chekhov mini.
Yeah, Chekhov mini for sure, because we know that the chips are going to come back later. I say that it doesn't really count because I think personally it's just too obvious. And Ethan clocks the chewing on the chips. You can see him squinting his eyes when he hears the chips and listening real hard. So you know that the chips are going to be important somehow.
So somehow it feels to me that it's the problem with it being a Chekhov's whatever is that the payoff is fairly soon after
it is very soon
act.
Yeah, it's not like the payoff comes in the final act or anything.
Yeah, I think the reason that I second guessed myself with the red ribbon in the beginning was because I thought, okay, it's so obvious that red ribbon is there. Mm-hmm. It's going to pay off in the next 5 minutes.
Right.
It's not a real Chekhov's thing.
Yeah, and like you said, it does pay off almost immediately because Ethan spots the traveler sitting at a bar across from the screening area of the TSA. And he's munching on chips in time with the sounds that he's hearing on the earpiece. So Ethan knows that he's spotted the guy who is talking to him over the phone. Ethan decides to stop a passenger on the pretense of needing to check his boarding pass. As he does so, he takes out that Tide pen and he hurriedly writes on this passenger's boarding pass. And then he flags down Officer Williams. Officer Williams scans it with his counterfeit blacklight pen and starts to walk away from the TSA station. It seems like maybe Ethan has success. But unfortunately, the traveler intercepts Officer Williams. He kills him surreptitiously and steals the boarding pass with Ethan's secret message on it calling for help and also IDing the traveler. It's at this moment that the traveler is revealed to be none other than Jason Bateman.
Sorry, did you mean Michael Bluth?
Yes, that is who I meant.
That's the only name I associate with that face.
Well, we did have a little headcanon going that maybe the traveler could be Michael Bluth. Like, there's no dispositive evidence that says this character cannot be Michael Bluth.
Yeah, I think everything in the film is consistent with that hypothesis.
I think so too. He says he has a son, George Michael. He says at one point that Christmas is all about family. And you know what the most important thing is?
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, he says buddy and pal in a way that is incredibly Michael Bluth-y.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's just doing this all for family.
He is just doing it for family because it's the most important thing.
Yeah, exactly. I do have a question here. So you intentionally hid from me that Jason Bateman was the actor playing the traveler.
Yes.
So that I could enjoy the big reveal. Now, I have to imagine that not every viewer would find the big reveal of Jason Bateman to be exciting. Why do you think that they sort of hid his identity this entire time? I mean, I would imagine hiding the antagonist's identity until halfway through the movie, you'd be like shocked. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. But it's Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for this. And also, I think this is a case of production maybe not communicating with marketing because One of the thumbnails for the movie in the Netflix catalog is just a big old picture of Jason Bateman. So it's not like they were necessarily hiding it, or at least the marketing team wasn't hiding it.
Yeah, at this point, he's a pretty big actor. I mean, as a marketing team, you'd want to show his face to show that this cool, Michael Bluth guy is in the movie. But why the big reveal in the movie? I don't understand.
You're right. It doesn't work as a reveal. It worked as a reveal for us just because we like Jason Bateman and think that he's funny.
I mean, one possible reason is Jason Bateman, not a scary person.
No.
He's not intimidating in any way. He doesn't have a cool scar across his face. He doesn't have a Russian accent.
True.
And so maybe in the earlier scenes where he was being very dark, murdering people out of hand, maybe they wouldn't have been believable if the guy doing it was a guy who occasionally says, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah, that tracks. If the whole time you knew it was Jason Bateman, you'd be like, I can't take this guy's threats seriously.
I'm not afraid of this guy.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of Jason Bateman. I'm willing to say that on microphone.
But you watched Ozark. You know what he's capable of.
Protecting his family.
Oh, yeah, true. I think this is also further proof that Netflix is just holding Jason Bateman hostage in the way that Marvel holds all of their actors hostage. They're like, you're going to be in a bad Christmas thriller, and there's nothing you can say about it because you won all those Emmys for Ozark. You're welcome.
Hey, buddy, you're going to have to be in a Christmas thriller.
Who is the real hostage here in this movie?
The viewers. 100% the viewers are the real hostage.
That's true.
Particularly when they've been drafted to watch the movie for a podcast and therefore they can't stop.
I'm sorry, I'll make you do it again. The traveler goes on to display just how much of a bad guy he is. He sits down with Ethan, reveals himself to Ethan as the bad guy. The traveler is pretty much like, this is your fault. You got Officer Williams killed. Actions have consequences, and I will make good on my threats to hurt your girlfriend, Nora. It's also at this point that Ethan displays his Sherlock level of deduction skills, because apparently on his secret message, he had written that the traveler is from New Jersey and whatever is in the luggage, it's not a bomb because he wasn't concerned about dogs, etc., etc. So we're at this point led to believe that Ethan is like this mastermind of deduction.
Can you believe that this mastermind didn't cut getting onto the police force?
I cannot believe it.
It just doesn't make sense. Something must be up here.
At this point, Jason has been reassigned to his original post at the scanner, but this means trouble for Ethan because it's Ethan's job to make sure that bag gets through TSA. So Ethan has to figure out how to get his pal Jason off the scanner somehow and get himself back into position. So he spikes a cup of coffee with some alcohol, swaps his coffee cup with Jason's, and then the traveler alerts their supervisor, and Jason is canned immediately.
On the spot
For drinking on the job, even though he was a lead and apparently well-liked and a good employee, but he is literally instantly fired. And also just as quickly, everyone else who works for the TSA knows about it, and most of them also blame Ethan.
Just looking at Sarkowski, the TSA supervisor, you know that guy's drinking on the job every day. That's the only thing that gets him through his shift.
He's already proven that he is indeed a bad boss, so I guess this tracks. I mean, the fact that he even let Ethan onto the role of scanner guy on Christmas Eve, it all tracks that he's a horrible boss.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's at this moment that Ethan sees the guy arrive with the bag. It's a person wearing a red baseball cap, and there's a red ribbon on the suitcase. He approaches the scanner. I did kind of like this scene a little bit because we get the POV of the bag going into the scanner. We get to see inside the scanner, quote unquote, although I'm sure it was all CGI, but I thought it was kind of fun.
Cool 3D CGI. That's what it takes to impress you, huh?
No, in fact, there's too much corny CGI in this movie.
Yeah. Now, I will say, as much crap as we're giving this movie, I will say there were a few times where I noticed that the cinematography was actually pretty good.
That's why I wanted to point this out. There were a few choices as far as shots and cinematography go that I was like, okay, well, I appreciate that they made an effort in this scene to do something interesting.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, I don't think that having the camera go through the scanner machine was an instance of the good cinematography. Okay. And I found that part to be quite cheesy myself.
Oh, okay. Well, agree to disagree. As Ethan is scanning the luggage, speaking of cool 3D CGI, the scanner reveals what's inside the bag. It's some sort of unknown liquid agent.
Unknown liquid.
Enhance. Yeah, the UI for the scanner, I think, is maybe more sophisticated than it might be in real life.
Yeah. It's able to generate a full 3-dimensional representation, identify that it can't identify the liquid.
Yes.
Now, the fact that it was unable to identify this liquid implies that it is able to identify some other liquids.
Oh, if that were true, I would be even more annoyed at TSA because I'd be like, you can see right there that it says that that's shampoo.
Yeah, it says shampoo right on your screen.
The scanner says shampoo. Yeah.
Yeah. So what list of liquids do we think the scanners are capable of understanding?
Yeah. Where does it start and stop? Who knows?
Yeah. And why didn't they make the things that it can understand the bad things? Why is the scanner able to identify water, shampoo, champagne, but not nerve gas, for example?
Yeah. So many questions. The TSA has a lot to answer for. Simultaneously, while this is happening, we cut between Ethan and Detective Cole as she researches Novichok on Google and discovers that it is a deadly nerve agent, a bioweapon, and she puts out a call to Homeland Security. It's all also dawning on Ethan the full severity of the situation. Everyone on the flight is in danger, but he does let the guy go through security. But first he takes a glance at his boarding pass and sees that this guy is named Mateo Flores and that he is headed for New York City. Ethan is freaking out though, and he goes into the bathroom to throw up.
This is one of those situations where I think, as the protagonist, if you're not an idiot, and apparently this guy, Ethan, is a genius.
Sometimes.
in terms of his ability to deduce things. And I feel like he should be able to deduce that this guy who's shown his face to him, Jason Bateman has shown him his face, definitely is going to kill him eventually.
Absolutely.
There's no chance that he's not going to casually show his face and then, blow up an airplane or whatever he's going to do. And then just leave him to know who he was.
No, absolutely not.
He's going to kill the girlfriend. He's going to kill him. Everybody's dead. And so any idea that he has about playing along with this situation just seems like madness.
Yes.
Getting authorities involved as quickly as you can just seems like a good idea.
I think that actually segues perfectly into the next scene because it's at this moment that the traveler, Jason Bateman, confronts Ethan in the bathroom and says, hey, good job. You did your job. And I'll let you and your girlfriend go as soon as that plane takes off. But there's no reason why the traveler wouldn't kill Ethan. Just in this moment, he absolutely would.
They're alone in the bathroom. And Ethan is a huge risk to his whole plot.
Yes.
He's gotten the package past security. There's one person in the whole world who shouldn't know that.
Yes.
And he's barfing into a toilet alone in a bathroom.
Yes.
And he's proven that he can kill people with a touch, basically.
Yeah, he can kill people with a touch. He has this nerve agent that can simulate a heart attack. There's no way that if he killed Ethan in that bathroom that he would draw any suspicion to himself whatsoever.
Yeah, the guy's a cold-blooded murderer.
Yeah.
Throw that body in a stall, close the door, you're done.
Yeah, but fortunately for Ethan, he has what's called plot armor or main character armor, and the traveler does not kill him.
I wish I had that.
I know. I wish I did too.
Hey, can we address how are they in the same bathroom? Does the TSA leave the security checkpoint and go into an unsecure area to use the bathroom?
There are many, many moments in this film where people who work at the airport go to unsecure areas where I'm like, there's tons of secure areas in the airport. Why would you, for example, run into a parking garage to escape a bad guy instead of going into a secure area?
Yeah, because you wouldn't.
Because you wouldn't. Because the characters make a lot of choices that don't make any sense except for the fact that they are in a movie and they need to move the movie plot along. But not only does the traveler not kill Ethan, but he also gets monologuing and explains his entire nefarious plot. He explains what Novichok 7 is. He says it's an incredibly deadly bio nerve agent, and then it would have the ability to kill thousands and thousands of people. He also explains why he didn't check the bag when Ethan asks. He says every checked bag is sent through an automatic CTX machine. The best chance was to get it on a plane inside a carry-on. Yep. So nice of him to reveal that plot to Ethan. This raises even more questions. So we know now that the bad guys want to deploy this nerve agent. They want to kill a lot of people, but apparently not a lot of people. They just want to kill about 250 people on a plane instead of everyone in the airport. And then you have to ask yourself, but why? Surely it would be easier to deploy the nerve agent into the airport or, I don't know, at the target's home or literally anywhere else.
Well, and if we're going to deploy something on an airplane, I feel like a bomb is perfectly adequate to cause the same kind of havoc.
For sure.
Why take the risk of getting this obscure, weird Russian nerve gas?
Also, they do try to hang a lantern on this a little bit in this scene, but it's just such an inept explanation that it just annoys me even more. The traveler says, "I'm the guy who keeps the casualties to a minimum. There are much larger numbers." Like, why? Why would he care about minimizing casualties? There's no reason.
I do appreciate his correct mathematical statement that there are much larger numbers.
And as he also says later, that's the thing with numbers. They all get larger.
They all get larger. What does that even mean?
Make it make sense, movie. Jesus.
All numbers get larger. That seems like potentially a very profound statement about the nature of reality itself.
I also don't know if that's true, because if it's a larger number, then it's not the same number as before, right? It's just a different number, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. All numbers are just what they are.
It's just what they are, yeah.
Yeah. Numbers actually can't get bigger. I mean, well, maybe he's talking about font size.
Oh,
You know, and he has some kind of weird software problem on his computer so that every time he types a number, the font gets bigger. And he's just confused. Yeah, all the numbers just keep getting bigger on my computer. I don't know why. And really just needs to turn it off and on again.
You know, this movie asks more important questions than I thought it did. We should give this movie more credit.
Do you think all words get longer?
Yes.
Do you think all heights get higher?
In the next scene, we meet Agent Alcott from the Department of Homeland Security. He is played by Logan Marshall Green, or as I like to call him, Wish Tom Hardy. I always seem to see this guy and I'm like, it's Tom Hardy. No, wait, it's not. It's the Tom Hardy we have at home. This makes no sense to Evan, audience. He has no idea who any actors are ever.
That's not quite true. I recognize people. I don't have aphasia necessarily.
Maybe mildly.
But I definitely don't put names to faces in the acting sphere.
I know. I apologize. That reference was for the audience, not for you. I'm sorry.
I hope they enjoy it.
I hope so too. Chime off in the comments. Agent Alcott tries to talk Detective Cole out of shutting down LAX, but she is insistent, and she wants to go there herself to investigate Officer Williams' death and to talk to Ethan Kopech in person, because apparently he turned off his phone, and apparently they know this for some reason, and this is a red flag to her. She thinks that something is going down at the airport. Alcott offers to go with her, and she makes him drive because apparently she is aware that she is bad about texting and driving.
Can you imagine the news stories about LAX being shut down on one of the busiest travel days of the year because some random LAPD detective thought they heard the two syllables no on a corrupted recording from some completely unrelated to the airport situation?
Well, there's a character in the movie that certainly agrees with you. We see some big shot at the FAA, and he's balking at the notion of doing any sort of disruption to holiday travel. And he says, it's the busiest travel day of the year. He's given real Mayor of Jaws vibes. Yeah. The traveler encourages Ethan to go have lunch with Nora as usual. He doesn't want him to draw suspicion by acting unusual or going off his routine. Again, Nora pushes Ethan to try for the police academy, and the traveler coaches him on what to say. Ethan tells him off, and Nora thinks that she's speaking to her, and she's about to leave in a huff, but they quickly patch things over.
I like this scene because I feel like it gives me an idea for something that I can use as an excuse when I say something rude to you.
You're like, oh, there's actually a terrorist speaking to me in my earpiece and prompting me what to say.
Exactly. And the nice thing is I don't actually have to bring that up until hours later.
Yes.
And when I bring it up, you won't be able to point out the fact that there's no earpiece in my ear.
I'll believe you the whole time. I'll be like, this seems to be happening a lot. That's weird.
I wouldn't lie about that.
But yes, the FAA does allow for there to be some random sweeps at the airport based on the detective's concerns. So the TSA have yet another briefing about these random sweeps. When Ethan goes to the meeting, he realizes that the traveler can't see him. There's no eyes on him. So he scans Sarkowski's badge and adds Mateo Flores, the courier of the bomb, to the manifest of otherwise random passengers that are going to be screened.
Now, it's worth pointing out, if he thinks that he's not under the watchful eye of the traveler, this
what else
would be
could
the
he
time.
do? Yes.
This would be the time to ring some fire bells.
Yes.
Tell your supervisor, oh shit,
This would be the time to get a regular ballpoint pen and write on a regular piece of paper, hey, here's what's going on.
Exactly. But he takes a much more obtuse approach.
But no, Evan, he has to prove himself. Don't you understand? He has to show that everyone's underestimating him.
Sorry, is this a Disney movie?
No, but that's the stated theme of the movie. Everyone has said it in oh so many words many times already. It's also in this scene that his supervisor tells him, hey, you've been promoted. We gave you your friend's job.
Yeah, you deserved it.
So, good for him.
I've never asked for a promotion and received it 3 hours later. That's amazing.
Yeah, the TSA works super quickly, apparently.
They're efficient. Lean, mean TSA machine.
Just as Ethan had hoped, Mateo does get pulled for a screening. The traveler is suspicious of Ethan. He says, I don't know how you did it, but I know that you're responsible for this. At this point, Ethan says he's done playing games. He takes out the earpiece and he sprints to the main desk of Northwind Airlines to get Nora and get out of there.
Movie over, right?
Yeah.
At this point, he's escaped the situation. He's gotten to the girlfriend. He can get her safe.
Yep.
He can go straight to the authorities, tell them everything they need to know, ground the flights. Movie over.
Yeah, if only people made smart decisions in this movie. But unfortunately for Ethan, the watcher in the surveillance van also has a sniper rifle and he has a bead on Nora's head. So Ethan puts the earpiece back in and the traveler says, I'll do it. I'll shoot her unless you walk away right now. And instead of, doing something smart, Ethan decides to walk away without a word.
I have to say, this is one of my favorite movie tropes, which is the laser pointer on a forehead trope.
Oh, yes, it's a good trope.
Yeah. With a sniper rifle, for anybody who doesn't know how sniper rifles work, they don't have laser pointers on them. There are guns with laser sights, and those are used for super short range when you're in a crazy situation that maybe it's dark, and they give you a really quick way to see where the gun is pointed. Sniper rifles don't have them. And if the sniper rifle was, pointed through a big glass pane, that laser pointer is not going to point necessarily where it's going to go. Mm-hmm. And also, it was broad daylight.
Oh, yeah.
But the main thing is sniper rifles literally never have laser sights on them. It's just not a thing.
I'm just imagining now while they were filming some PA on set just standing just slightly off frame with a laser pointer.
Yeah. And then 2 seconds later, right after they stopped that shot, a cat came and attacked her.
More deadly than a sniper rifle. You should know you're a cat trainer.
Exactly. Amateur cat trainer.
Oh, right. Excuse me. Ethan, again, for some reason, goes into a bathroom, an unsecure bathroom that apparently anyone can access. And the traveler does go into the same bathroom. And this time he beats up Ethan. He's very mad that he has defied him. And he says, I thought I liked you, but you're asleep. And he says that so that Ethan can have a cool one-liner later. But we'll put a pin in that as well.
Does this guy have bathroom vision? How does he keep finding Ethan in the bathroom?
The watcher.
He just always knows when he's in the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay. And he's always close to all the bathrooms. That's his main thing. He's kind of staying equidistant to the bathroom so he can get into them as quickly as possible.
You know how easy and convenient it is to get around LAX instantly, right?
Yeah. The other thing I know about LAX is that normally when you go into a bathroom, it's empty. You're the only person in there.
Absolutely.
For an extended period of time.
Yeah. Plenty of time to say, have a fist fight and tussle a little bit. The traveler has Ethan in a headlock, but Ethan manages to swipe the plastic gun away from the traveler. Ethan holds him at gunpoint, but not before the traveler is able to engage the payload remotely. And he says, it's going to go off in 10 minutes and it'll kill everyone in this airport because apparently it does have the capability of dispersing through an entire airport, I suppose.
Sure.
He says the bomb can be disarmed manually and he sends Ethan to do just that.
As a software engineer, I just have to gripe about the app design here.
I thought you were an amateur cat trainer.
That too.
Okay.
But, I feel like it's kind of lazy software engineering to add an arm button on the app, but not a disarm button on the app.
Yeah, unless you want to achieve peak tension in a cinematic moment.
Artificially.
Yes.
Okay, great. Then that sounds good to me.
Just like everything else in this movie. Ethan sprints to the room where Mateo and his luggage are being screened by Sarkowski. Sarkowski asks for the luggage code, which I have to assume is 12345.
That sounds like an idiot's luggage combination.
The traveler commands Ethan to shoot Sarkowski. Ethan is torn. And it seems like he's about to do it, but he can't, and he lowers the gun. But unfortunately for Dean Norris, Mateo stabs him to death with a pen instead. A regular old pen.
Savage.
This is a moment where I have to kick myself. We get a literal Chekhov's gun, or in this case, Chekhov's plastic gun. The traveler tells Ethan that you can't shoot the gun too many times because it will overheat and will explode in his hand.
Yep, because plastic, when it gets hot, explodes like a bomb.
Exactly. It doesn't melt. It just explodes.
Yep.
That's it.
Nice.
This will come back later. Mateo reveals to Ethan that just like Ethan, he is doing all this against his will. The bad guys are holding his husband hostage, and that is why he has to courier the bomb.
I will say that was legitimately kind of a fun thing because I didn't predict that.
It also made me wonder, I thought they would take it maybe a step further and that maybe even Jason's Bateman character would be being held hostage to some higher power.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, they really had George Michael held hostage. But
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that thought occurred to me as well. And I do think it would have been more interesting than what actually happened.
I agree. Through the earpiece, the traveler walks Ethan through disarming the weapon. Meanwhile, another TSA agent is pounding at the door, demanding to be let in. I don't know why he needs to be in that room so badly, but he does, apparently.
It's so important that he gets into that room.
Just in the nick of time, Ethan disarms the bomb with 2 seconds left. If it were like Galaxy Quest, it would stop at 1 second. But, you know, he got a spare second in there before it blew up.
Not all movies can be as good as Galaxy Quest.
Oh, that's true. That's an unfair standard to hold the movie to.
High bar.
So Ethan disarms the weapon and hides Sarkowski's body before the other TS agent can see it. Meanwhile, Detective Cole is in the car with Alcott. Alcott is driving. Cole's tech guy calls her and reveals that Officer Williams was actually murdered with some sort of bioagent and that there are indeed high-value targets leaving LAX that day. The tech guy gives her his contact at Homeland Security, one Agent Alcott, who is apparently on his way to the station at that moment. But wait, isn't she in the car with Agent Alcott?
Just thinking about the high-value targets thing, I would kind of prefer if the TSA was thinking about protecting people like me. I don't think of myself as a high value target.
True.
But, you know, if they found that there were no high value targets, would they just pack up and go home?
If they're trying to figure out who the target is, I think they're making a big assumption that there is a high value target. Like there's no reason why a terrorist wouldn't just target every single person at an airport, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, all the terrorist attacks that I've ever heard of on United States soil were kind of generalized blow a bunch of people up things. I'm sure it happens from time to time. And I'm sure that there are some, conspiracy theorists that think that every single terrorist attack is to take out some specific person. But
yeah.
I just think that maybe the TSA should think about the little guy.
Well, to defend the TSA, this is not the TSA. This is the LAPD that's investigating this.
Okay, again, this is my inability to watch movies.
Too many characters. So Detective Cole realizes that maybe she's not in the car with the real Agent Alcott. She looks over to the guy driving the car and sees a tattoo on his wrist. This means nothing to her, I wouldn't think. It just means something to the audience because we saw the guy who's working with the Watcher and the Traveler that he had this same tattoo on his wrist when he was breaking into Jason's home. So once again, we have this discordance between what's actually would matter to characters in universe versus what's there solely for the benefit of the audience and how there's a lot of mismatch overlap between the two. But this tips off Detective Cole. She pulls her gun on this guy who's impersonating Agent Alcott and tells him to pull the car over. But instead, he decides to fight her in the car. And we get perhaps the most ridiculous car chase ? Scene I've ever seen.
There's a lot of heavy CGI usage in that scene.
There's a lot of heavy CGI usage. It's over, I guess, an ironic, although maybe that's not the right word for it, an ironic rendition of Last Christmas. It's not really irony. I guess it's just sort of a...
Bad?
Yeah, bad. Okay. Yeah, that too.
Now, this detective, she hung up the phone after sort of making a couple of statements that would make the phone call sound like it went well.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't indicate to the guy in the car with her that anything was amiss. She handled the phone call in such a way that he would not be suspicious that she had learned that he was a bad guy.
True. Yes.
And so I think that maybe she would be smart enough to know that waiting until they came to a stop to pull a gun on him would be the safest option.
Instead of while they're driving on an LA freeway.
Yeah, I like it. There's just no way that works out well for you.
That's true.
You know, maybe get your gun ready. That's fine.
I mean, I don't know if any character in this movie throughout the entire movie makes a smart choice in their actions.
Interesting. We'll have to think about
that. We'll have to think about that. I do want to give a little bit of kudos to the film, though. This is one of those moments where I was like, okay, at least they were trying to be interesting. The entirety of this car fight scene chase. So it's a car chase essentially, right? But it all happens from within the interior of the car. So we get car stunts, we get action happening on a freeway with vehicles. They're all CGI, mind you. But I liked that it was all shot from the interior of the car. I thought, okay, they were trying to be clever. I feel like they succeeded at least a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm willing to call them car stunts, given that they were pixels.
True.
But it, in theory, was an interesting scene.
In theory, yes. And Evan can attest that I was laughing the whole time. And I was mostly laughing just because it was so dumb. I wasn't laughing because I was genuinely entertained. I was just like, this is so stupid.
It was super ridiculous.
It was super ridiculous.
But they did have an idea and they tried it.
An attempt was made. Meanwhile, Ethan and Mateo are taking the MacGuffin to baggage handling when the traveler patches Mateo's husband through to his earpiece and tells him that he just has one more thing to do. He should kill Ethan. We have another chase/fight scene which ensues. Ethan and Mateo are running through the baggage handling. The case gets kicked all around. It's kind of like, I don't know, a Looney Tunes cartoon in a factory. They're trying to chase down the MacGuffin. But fortunately for the audience, we are able to follow the action because of the red ribbon on the suitcase. So helpful.
This is probably one of the scenes that resulted in the comparison to Die Hard, because Die Hard 2 occurs on Christmas, like all Die Hard movies, as far as I know. In an airport instead of a skyscraper.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And there is, you know, a pretty good action scene inside the baggage conveyor area.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, a much more fun action scene. I'm not a big fan of Die Hard 2, but that scene is pretty fun.
I feel like all the action scenes in this movie were not choreographed in a particularly interesting way.
Not particularly.
No, they weren't very memorable. And also there's so many opportunities for, like, I don't want to call it prop comedy, but if you're in a baggage claim area with conveyor belts and bunch of suitcases, there's so many opportunities for props to be used in the fight. I mean, I guess this movie doesn't have any humor really, but he could have opened up a bag and found a dildo and hit him with it. You know, there were just opportunities for anything to happen in this fight scene.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of fighting on the baggage claim or the baggage conveyors,
yes,
I suppose.
That's true. I also, though, was reminded of Speed more in this scene because Ethan pushes Mateo into a low clearance beam, which is exactly what happens in Speed when they're fighting on top of a train at the end of the movie.
I'll have to check TV tropes because there must be a name for
There's got to be
standing up on a train and hitting the tunnel, the sign, the post.
Absolutely. At this point, Mateo has taken the plastic gun away from Ethan and he keeps shooting at him with it. Ethan tries to warn him that the gun is going to explode. Mateo doesn't hear him, and the gun indeed does explode because it's Chekhov's gun. And sadly, I guess, he is killed by shrapnel from the exploding gun, but not before he has the chance to say he's sorry.
As an amateur cat trainer, I want to step in here and talk a little bit about plastic guns.
Oh, yes, please.
So it is possible for a gun to explode in your hand due to some kind of firing malfunction.
Sure.
Imagine the barrel gets clogged with something. But the reason bullets are dangerous is that they get all that energy from the gunpowder, projecting it in one direction. All of it helps go in one direction. So having the round explode, all that energy going all kinds of different directions, very chaotic. You might lose a hand. I don't know. You might damage your hand, something like that. But this guy, it basically shoots him in the neck and kills him.
Yeah.
I am not buying it. Not buying it at all.
I'll just have to believe you.
Well, as an amateur cat trainer, you ought to.
Ethan gets Mateo's phone out of his pocket because for some reason the bad guys let Mateo have his phone.
Mateo was trustworthy. He did what he was told.
Yeah, but, well, okay, yes. I guess they did just make Ethan get rid of his phone after he disobeyed. But still, that seems like a huge oversight.
Of course.
Yes. Ethan calls Nora, but it goes straight to voicemail. And so instead, he texts his TSA buddy, Eddie. And for a second, I was like, wait a second. There's so much wrong with this. Why would he text Eddie instead of Jason? Why would he know any of his pals' phone numbers? Answer me this, listener. Do you know any of your friends' phone numbers off the top of your head? I don't. Do you?
I know your number.
Well, that's the thing. He knew Nora's number. I know your number.
Fair.
You know mine. I don't know any of my buddies' numbers. So he was using someone else's phone. It's not like Eddie's number was in there. And I was like, this makes no sense. But of all the things for the movie to have continuity with, the reason why Ethan knows Eddie's phone number is because in the very beginning of the movie, in the TSA briefing, Eddie was handing out flyers for his SoundCloud. So Ethan pulls out one of those SoundCloud flyers from his pocket and messages Eddie. So I have to call this Chekhov's SoundCloud flyer.
Unbelievable writing.
Unbelievable.
You know, that setup and the payoff, just incredible.
Amazing. Yeah, because of course Eddie's going to save the day now, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
By the way, in addition to your phone number, there are a couple of other phone numbers that I know just by memory.
Oh, like 911 perhaps?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. You know, I'll probably just text my DJ friend instead.
Yeah. Since shit is going down, the traveler decides he needs to step in, and he intercepts Ethan in baggage handling and shoots him because apparently he has another real gun, I guess.
Excuse me. How did he get into baggage handling?
You know, that's a good question.
And you know, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like potentially a secure area.
Yeah.
Now, if you were a bad guy and you wanted to get something bad on an airplane and you were able to access the baggage handling area, can you think of some way that you might be able to put those pieces together to get what you wanted?
To maybe cut out a few middlemen?
No, you're right. That wouldn't work.
You missed the memo that we're trying to make a movie here, okay? That's the real goal.
I thought we were trying to make a good movie.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, sorry.
Ethan runs away from the traveler, and we see him scurrying over to a pile of other bags, and he puts the MacGuffin suitcase with the bomb side by side with another similar but slightly bigger suitcase.
Now, when you say similar, you mean absolutely 100% completely identical, except exactly 0.75 of 1 inch bigger.
Yes, that is in fact what I meant. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, yes. So we have to assume at this point that he's going to swap the suitcases, right? He's going to put the traveler off the scent by putting the red ribbon on the dummy bag and then run away with the bomb himself, right?
Take it straight to the authorities, tell them
course.
what's happening, get it disarmed, and movie over.
Of course, we have to assume that's what's going on because any other decision would be idiotic. Well, I mean, I guess we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, at this point, the traveler is very fed up and he gives the watcher the go-ahead to kill Nora. But at that moment, Eddie shows up. Eddie, the TSA pal, shows up and shows Nora the text that he received from Ethan.
Right, because as a TSA agent, part of the training that you receive to get that job protecting people in airports is that if you receive information about some kind of terrorist threat or plot for violence, you should take it to a random employee of the airport.
You should take it to your buddy's girlfriend.
Yeah, don't run it up the flagpole. Don't tell any other TSA agents whatsoever. Don't call 911. Just do what the text says. It's fine.
Well, you know all those posters in the airport that say, if you see something, say something?
They don't say to whom you should say something.
Well, they're in very fine text under it. It says, say something to your buddy's girlfriend. That's actually the final part of the phrase.
Sense.
Not everyone knows that.
Yeah, they should put that in bigger font.
They should. They really should.
Words always get bigger.
Words always get bigger. Eddie, further proving just how useless he is, immediately gets stabbed by the Watcher, and the Watcher chases Nora through the traffic of the loading area into the parking garage. And why did Nora run that way instead of to a secure area?
It makes sense.
I'm sorry. Yes, it makes sense.
When I'm getting chased by somebody bad, instead of running to a door that only I can get through, or running to just a large group of people, I run to a place that's abandoned and or empty of other people.
Or, the nearest security agent, of which I am sure there are many in an airport.
Not in an airport. They've got better things to do.
Detective Cole then arrives on the scene. She sees bullet holes in the baggage handling area. And at that point, she decides to shut it all down. She says, let's shut down the terminal. Let's ground all the Northwind flights. But the FAA big shot guy refuses to ground every single flight. And he says unless the order comes straight from Homeland Security, he's going to let other flights that aren't Northwind go ahead because he moonlights at the FAA when he's not busy being a mayor of a small beach town.
And this is the busiest, travel day of the year.
It's the busiest travel day of the year.
Yep.
Detective Cole runs into Ethan in baggage handling and tries to arrest him, but he punches her and breaks free. But he does try to give her all the information he has on the bad guys, and he tells her to ground the Northwind flight that he thinks the bag is going to.
Again, this guy, how did they keep him out of police academy? He can juke and disarm and disable a crack detective.
A much smaller lady than him. He's able to somehow overpower her.
Yeah, I still think that, he's police material. this guy.
Ethan sprints to find Nora and does immediately find her in the parking garage. I guess in the way that the Watcher has like bathroom radar sense, he must have Nora radar sense because I don't know how he found her there.
Why he left the terminal to find her is a little bit unclear to me, but he did hear her scream.
He did hear her scream, but he was also already in the parking garage.
Right. He knew she would be in a parking garage.
He finds her and they embrace right when the Watcher is about to shoot her. But in that moment, Mateo's husband frees himself from where he's being held in the van and shoots the Watcher with the sniper rifle. The husband gets the bad news about Mateo, but he also tells Ethan a very helpful bit of information, which is that Mateo was meant to fly to DC, not to New York, as Ethan originally thought. And in fact, Mateo was given 2 plane tickets.
Dun, 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 dun.
Bum, bum, bum. So that bomb that apparently Ethan did not swap out is headed for a different flight.
What do you mean he didn't swap it out?
I mean, he didn't take the bomb with him, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
The Traveler meets up with his other accomplice, that blue-haired girl we saw earlier. She leaves behind a parachute for him while he's sitting at an airport bar. And once again, on the news, we see a news piece about Congresswoman Grace Turner.
I'm getting some strong D.B. Cooper vibes at this point.
Oh, yeah. So it's in this moment that we learn that the real target this whole time was Congresswoman Grace Turner, and the Traveler gets on a flight to D.C. with her. But as he is boarding the flight, his carry-on bag doesn't fit in the overhead bin. Plot foiled.
But wait, he measured it himself.
He measured it himself.
How could it not fit?
Oh, wait a second. Did Ethan swap the suitcase for a slightly bigger suitcase that was not, in fact, carry-on compliant?
And that was such a calculated move because the thing barely doesn't fit. I mean, we're talking just 0.75 of an inch. It's not a big, suitcase.
Yes.
It's just an oddly slightly larger carry-on.
I also want to point out at this point, so when Ethan swapped the suitcases, at that point, he thought that the bag was intended for a Northwind flight. He didn't know that it was leaving on a different airline. So airlines have different carry-on regulations depending on airline and depending on the aircraft and the overhead bin space. So he was able to exactly predict just large enough a bag that that the Traveler wouldn't clock that it was a different bag, but it also would be forced to be gate checked.
4D chess.
This guy is he's brilliant. He's Sherlock Holmes level.
3.5 steps ahead.
Exactly. Also, this incredibly genius guy, apparently he, in the heat of the moment in the badge claim, memorized the luggage number on the piece of luggage holding the bomb, which he then recites this entire number to Nora. Nora plugs it into the computers and sees that the baggage has been scanned for a flight headed to DC. But instead of stopping that flight, Ethan says, no, if we ground the flight, the Traveler will just deploy the bomb instantly and kill everyone. He'll do it. I have a brilliant plan. Instead of that, I'm going to go disarm the bomb.
Yep. He knows how to do it.
He's disarmed it once. He can do it again, is what he says.
Genius.
And for some reason, Nora agrees to this plan, and Ethan leaves sprinting to catch the plane. Meanwhile, Detective Cole and her tech guy have put all the pieces together, and they figure out that Congresswoman Grace Turner is the intended target. It's all a setup by some nefarious Americans to make it look like the Russians had killed her. That would then lead to her legislation going through and making private contractors millions.
It's always the defense corporation.
It's always Blackwater. Cole is about to ground the flight, but Nora conveniently finds her and convinces her, no, let the flight through. She tells Detective Cole all about Ethan's brilliant plan for disarming the bomb himself. And for some reason, Detective Cole agrees to this and tells them to let the plane go ahead and take off.
Now, can we imagine the deposition if this were to go wrong?
Talk about instantly getting fired.
Yeah. They're like, okay, so a random person ran up to you and told you that another random person had a plan to defuse a weird nerve gas bomb. Uh-huh. And you were like, I weighed all the options. It made sense.
I have no reason to trust this person or to believe that she's not in on the plot as well. And we're going to go through with it.
That is some gut feeling. Right there.
Yeah. Ethan catches up to the plane on the tarmac using a baggage tractor. He opens up a hatch to get inside and starts frantically searching through all the luggage as the plane takes off. Thanks to the handy red ribbon, he does find the suitcase containing the bomb and begins to disarm it. But the traveler gets the notification on his phone that the bomb has been set to manual mode, so he has to go investigate. And he's able to really easily yet again get into a secure area.
It's just his thing.
He just waltzes his way into the cargo hold where he confronts Ethan. They have what I would call a very anticlimactic fight. He shoots Ethan once in the leg, and that's about the entirety of the fight.
It's a brief tussle.
It's a very brief tussle. The traveler says, nice touch switching out the bag. Apparently, he has put the pieces together as well that Ethan gave him.
Damn, you almost got me with that slightly larger luggage, you brilliant maniac.
That wily TSA. Ethan puts the suitcase into an airtight fridge, very convenient, which lures the traveler to it. But when the traveler retrieves the suitcase, Ethan pushes him inside the refrigerator and also chucks in the nerve gas canister that he had already secretly removed from the suitcase. He shuts the door on the traveler and holds it shut while he's pounding to get out, and the nerve gas goes off, killing the traveler. R.I.P. Jason Bateman.
A really important detail here that I feel the need to point out is that he threw the canister of nerve gas into the refrigerator.
Quite strongly,
but didn't break it, because if he had broken it at that point, everybody would die.
Yes.
And only after Jason Bateman's character got pushed into the fridge after it, when he was beating on the door to get out, he accidentally kicked the nerve gas.
He bumps it with his foot.
He bumped it with his foot, and that cracked it open and killed him. Again, 4D chess. Ethan knew exactly what his feet were going to do when he was panicking to get out of that refrigerator. He knew that if he threw it in hard enough to break it, he'd kill himself and everybody else on the airplane. Mm-hmm. That's cold, calculated TSA decision-making.
He knew exactly how much stress that canister could handle. And he's like, nope, I'm just going to, like loosening a pickle jar. He's just going to give it enough force.
Brilliant.
He's so smart.
Wily.
So wily. As he's throwing in the canister, he also gets off his one-liner of, I guess I woke up. I'm not asleep. I woke up. I'm so cool.
Comparable to many other blockbuster one-liners.
So memorable. People are going to be quoting this forever.
Forever.
I think I might get a tattoo of it. The plane makes an emergency landing back at LAX and lands safely. All is well. Detective Cole arrives on the scene on the tarmac and tells the other cops to stand down, to let Ethan go, and to also let Nora through. She's got a lot of authority, this Detective Cole.
Big time.
Ethan and Nora reunite, they kiss, they say they love each other, and Nora says she knew he could do it. So at least one person believed in him this whole time. Flash forward to next year's Christmas. Ethan and Norrin are flying to Tahiti because of course they are. Along with them, they have their new baby, and they are also joined by Jason and his family. Apparently, they have repaired that bridge. And in the very last scene, Ethan tosses his badge into the TSA tray at the scanner. He's a cop with the LAPD. He made his dream come true. Happy ending.
He did it.
He did it. We all believed in his ability to become a cop.
His skills were finally recognized.
His Holmesian level deduction skills were rewarded.
When he woke up that day before the movie, he knew all this was going to happen. And that was his best bet to get that badge.
You know, he's a lot smarter than we gave him credit for.
Exactly.
All right. So I think that the listeners have a pretty good idea already. But what did you think of this movie, Evan? What were your overall impressions?
I was blown away, honestly.
By how bad it was?
The acting was incredible. The plot, the writing was just amazing.
So good.
No, my takeaways were that I did not enjoy the movie. There are a few things I did enjoy about it.
Yes.
Mostly that you hid the fact that Jason Bateman was a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, the movie was your co-conspirator in that. So the big Jason Bateman reveal was funny.
It allowed you to believe for about 30 minutes that there was some real threat in the movie.
Right. I also really appreciated the fact that they made sure that the movie was consistent with the idea that maybe that was Michael Bluth from Arrested Development the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that pretending that was true made the movie more fun.
See, you were saying earlier that you prefer to go into movies blind, and I really wish I had gone into this movie blind, because just the fact that so many people had compared it to Die Hard really made the bar really high in my mind, unfairly so. If I hadn't had the expectation that this would be of similar caliber to Die Hard, I don't think I would have been quite so down on the movie. But also, that being said, I don't think it was very successful for what it was trying to do either. So it's an action thriller, right? I was trying to think if I really felt the tension at any point. If there was any moment where I was like, oh no, are they going to be able to do it? And I don't think I had a single moment of caring about the characters enough to worry.
They somehow did not develop tension.
They didn't.
So to compare it to another movie we watched recently, Speak No Evil, which is a movie where all of the protagonists made terrible decisions the whole time. It was very frustrating. But still, it had an effect on me. Their bad decision-making was frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
There was tension because their bad decisions led them into stupid situations that were frustrating. But this movie, it didn't even frustrate me because it was all just kind of silly.
It was all just kind of silly. And also, I think another reason why I didn't feel tension is just because at the end of the day, I didn't really care about the characters that much.
Megan, how could you not care about the characters? They were pregnant.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I forgot about the movie shorthand for trying to make us care instead of actually trying to develop good, likable characters.
Yeah, they're pregnant and they got to go to Tahiti.
They got to go to Tahiti.
This is important stuff to get back to.
I have to say, I also see parallels to Hot Frosty, where the characters talk about going to Hawaii next Christmas.
I'm glad to say that I cannot see any parallels to Hot Frosty because I haven't seen the film.
Listen to episode 3, listeners, Hot Frosty. Okay, anyway. It's hard to successfully cast someone who is guaranteed going to have enough charisma and likability to carry a movie to the point where it doesn't matter how many holes there are on the plot. The main person is likable enough that you're rooting for them. You're hoping they don't die. But I feel like they could have worked a little harder to find someone more suited for this role.
To coin a term, if somebody were to charismatically fizzle, that would be for them to rizzle. And Ethan... he was a hard rizzle for me. There was nothing about him to like, honestly.
Yeah. He has been in other action movies before, Kingsman, for example. I feel like he has the potential to be a good action person. He certainly has the physique for it. I believe that he could be the guy saving the day. But like I said, the choreography of the fights were lackluster to me. Overall, it just wasn't that exciting of an action movie. And I don't think they used him to potentially his full action hero potential.
Well, like you said before, there's kind of not that much action in the movie.
Yeah, totally.
If this movie were released the weekend before the 4th of July,
mm-hmm.
do you think the executives would have had them, swap out the Christmas stuff for 4th of July stuff?
Absolutely, because it's entirely incidental to the movie.
I really think that the Christmas part was 100% marketing.
I think that's fair. Netflix does like to do this. Sorry, I know I keep referencing old episodes, but my first episode was a family affair, and it was released on Netflix in June, but it took place at Christmas. And I thought, this is very strange. Why release a Christmas movie in summer? Turns out its original release date was slated for November. So yeah, it was very calculated, and it was absolutely Christmas only because its initial premiere date was going to be during Christmas time. There was no other reason to do it.
Yeah, it just seemed very shoehorned in. And you know, I almost wonder if they filmed, you know, intros for a couple of different holidays.
Christmas is more intertwined in the movie than you think it is, because the entire airport is decorated with like wreaths and garland and lights. So I think it was more than just A/B testing the beginning and end of the movie.
They were shooting for a Christmas movie the whole time.
They were,
okay,
yes.
Fair enough.
I really think Netflix is just trying to make their entire business model around the hope that you will get stuck in that carousel on the Netflix app of recommending related movies to you. And if all of their movies technically take place at Christmas, they can therefore recommend all related movies to you.
Genius.
Yes.
That's some more 4D chess.
Yeah, Netflix is thinking. Okay, now's the time in the podcast where we move to tallying our points. The first Chekhov's gun I had was Chekhov's Red Ribbon. This definitely came back. I would personally reward myself 2 points for it having a setup and a payoff, but not the payoff that I anticipated.
I felt that the payoff would have been greater if the luggage swap came to something more.
That's the thing. That's why I was so surprised. Okay, technically a luggage swap did happen. Ethan swapped the canister into a different piece of luggage.
Yes.
But like you were saying, I really thought that the red ribbon was going to be used as a diversion tactic, and that he was going to put that wasn't my initial guess. But once we were into the movie and once I knew how the red ribbon was being used, I thought, oh, he's going to put the ribbon onto a dummy suitcase, and Jason Bateman's character will think that he has the bomb for several scenes. But switcheroo, exactly. But then the big reveal will be that actually Ethan's character had the bomb all along. So I agree. The payoff was not a good payoff.
Yeah, Ethan just gave him the bomb in a slightly larger suitcase.
Yes.
It's just weird.
That was, in fact, the payoff, yes.
But the red ribbon definitely did turn out to be significant to the movie. Albeit in a strange way, because the movie was strange.
Because the movie was strange. Would you agree with 2 points or maybe less than that, since it was not a very effective Chekhov's gun?
No, I agree with 2 points as long as I get my 0.25.
Your quarter point? Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a quarter point for that.
Yeah, because I thought about it for a moment.
All right, the next Chekhov's gun was your guess.
Chekhov's Police Academy.
Indeed. Unfortunately, that didn't come back.
Well, it came back, but just it didn't turn out to be a Chekhov's thing.
No.
Yeah, I thought the guy was a flight attendant. It was going to turn out he had some background, and he had gone away from law enforcement to be a flight attendant because he wanted to travel more. But now those skills were useful. But I was completely wrong. You
did tune into the fact that it was something that would be recurring in the movie, but it did end up being more thematic than narrative. It was just a representation of how he was able to accomplish his dream at the end of the movie.
Yeah, to be fair, when I wrote it down as my guess, it was only about 5 seconds after that they made it very, very, very clear that was an important point to the movie. There was nothing subtle about it.
Yes, I'm sorry. No points for that.
I was under the impression that I lose a point for that.
Oh, you are right. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm the resident mathematician / amateur cat trainer in the house.
I mean, I'm afraid this disproves Jason Bateman. The numbers are getting smaller.
Well, maybe that's wrong. Maybe they have to get bigger.
Yeah. Well, in this case, I'm subtracting a point.
Now, he did say bigger, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So it's fun. Can you write on that paper that I see in front of you, can you write my -3/4 in really large font, please?
I'm doing so right now.
Okay. That's pretty big. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's
Can you read that?
That's probably like an 80-point font.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. And that saves some room for like a 90 or a 100-point font later.
Okay, I guess Jason Bateman is right after all. The numbers do only get bigger.
Only bigger.
Next was Chekhov's counterfeit pen. This did come back. Officer Williams used the pen light to reveal Ethan's secret message. So it did not detect bomb residue as I thought it might, but it did have a setup and a payoff. So I'd also give myself 2 points for that.
Now, mostly because I just want to win, even though I think technically that's impossible at this point. I just want to discuss, what did you think the Chekhov's object was? A pen or a light or?
The light. So they called it the
pen
counterfeit light? Pen, as in pen light.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. You get
it was the pen light that they were demonstrating during the TSA
I was
briefing.
hoping to catch you on a technicality, but I didn't.
I'm the one running this podcast here.
For now.
But
I might ask for a promotion. And if you're anything like Sarkowski, you'll give me a shot after I ask enough.
That's true. And also I might be drinking on the job, so.
Oh, I didn't know that was an option. That wasn't in the podcast instructions. You didn't say we could drink.
My next guess was Chekhov's Contraband Bingo. This did not come back in any way whatsoever.
It should have, though.
It should have. I agree it should have. And finally, I had Chekhov's Coffee Stain, where I feel like I should argue I get a quarter point for this because I zeroed in on that scene that something was going to come back later, but my eye was drawn to the coffee stain instead of to the Tide pen.
I completely okay the quarter point.
I wouldn't have even argued for it except for that you wanted a quarter point for yourself.
That's fair.
Okay. Well, this is going to make calculating the points annoying for me, so maybe I won't do that actually. Actually, I'm not going to do that.
No, you said you were going to.
Okay, fine.
And
all
plus
right.
the numbers only get bigger.
All right. Just a moment as I calculate the points. Beep, boop, boop.
Do, 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 do.
Okay, I'm done.
Do, do,
Stop.
Do, do, rup, do, 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 do.
Okay, thank you. The points have been...
Do, 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 do.
You're disinvited from future podcasts. The points...
Bum, 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 bum. Okay, I had to end the song.
Are you done? Okay.
The song is done.
Okay, good. The points have been tallied. Evan, you have -3/4 of a point.
In large font.
In very
80
large
point, at
font.
least.
So it's actually quite a large number. And I have a total of 2.25 points, which makes me the winner.
Yeah, but your font's smaller. I mean, I think this is a little bit like Whose Line, isn't it?
That is true. The points do not matter. It's just a movie review podcast. The Chekhov's gun game is the icing on the cake.
So in
It's all
many
good.
ways, we could say that we both won. Like, especially me.
No, I don't know if I'd go that far.
But I mean, you know, like,
No.
I probably have the bigger font.
No.
Just look at the page, and for the readers, could you please discuss whether the font for my score or the font for your score
Oh,
is
look
larger?
at that. The font for my score is suddenly a lot bigger.
How many points of font would you say that is?
Like 160.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good estimate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And it's consistent with the numbers only getting larger.
Yes, the numbers are getting too large. It's time to end this podcast. Evan, thank you so much for joining me and for watching a bad movie that I made you watch.
You're very welcome. I was very happy to be on the podcast. I only wish I could have trolled you more.
Will you join me again sometime?
I would, but I'm pretty sure you just said that I wasn't allowed to be on the podcast and I'd been banned. So.
Well, only because you were singing the Jeopardy theme.
Are you unbanning me?
I'm unbanning you.
Okay, but just remember, I will sing the Jeopardy theme
Okay.
on every episode.
I will keep that in mind. So until next time, where can the listeners find you online, if anywhere?
Well, I've deleted myself from the internet. I'm no longer findable on the internet in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I don't actually exist.
Okay.
I'm more of a ghost than Jason Bateman in this movie.
Okay. We'll see about that. Check out the show notes, listeners. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chekhov's Whatever. Go to chekhovswhatever.substack.com to follow along with the podcast. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and leave a positive review. You can also find video clips and full audio episodes on YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe at Chekhov's Whatever. And finally, you can send email to chekhovswhateverpodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's end this show with a bang.